Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where we visit a different industry every day and explore the tech aspects that are making a big impact. And today I want to look a little bit closer at the world of real estate or real estate tech, because I recently read about a company called SquareFoot, who are a commercial brokerage house. And their innovation is not the services that they provide to growing companies in need of new offices in major US cities. It's how they identify and acquire those clients. Because the vast majority of the people who come to them walk in the front door. Because their CEO, Jonathan Wasserstrum, invested in a bit of technical SEO and a lot of savvy digital marketing. And it turns out by doing that, he discovered that a large amount of people don't know real estate brokers personally in the cities, so they're Googling for answers, the same way in which we all Google for everything else. So as a result of that, SquareFoot appear on the other end of those results. So Jonathan has built a commercial brokerage around organic search, which completely fascinated me. And the first thing those clients find is their online listings platform, where they can accumulate knowledge about where office spaces are available in their markets and find out immediately how much they cost. But I invited Jonathan on the podcast today to talk about innovation in the real estate industry. And he also speaks about co-working space and other breakthroughs that have emerged over the past decade, and also shares his opinion on the world of remote working. So please, let me beam your ears all the way to New York City so we can speak with Jonathan right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me so much. Yeah, Jonathan Wasserstrum, CEO and co-founder of SquareFoot. And SquareFoot helps growing companies solve their real estate needs. And we do that by offering them access to inventory through our listings platform, an in-house brokerage team that helps guide them through the entire transaction process. And finally, we have flexible options ready to go for them with our Flex by SquareFoot, as well as Pivot Desk platforms.
Excellent. And just to set the scene, especially for people tuning in and hearing about SquareFoot for the first time, can you tell me a little bit more about how SquareFoot actually brings together technological innovation and human expertise to actually solve clients' needs, and also the kind of problems that you're solving too?
Yeah, so look, at the end of the day, growing companies, just like larger companies, struggle through their real estate process. And what we found is the ideal scenario there, the ideal situation is to have both tech as well as people involved throughout that process. So there are things that a person will always do better, and there are things that tech can bring a lot of efficiency to and make for a much smoother process. So for us here at SquareFoot, it's kind of bridging that digital divide, the online-offline experience, and making really a 10x better experience for our clients as they navigate the real estate world.
And commercial real estate is an industry stuck with doing things in traditional ways, or at least that's the perception of a lot of people out there. So can you tell me more about how you were able to change the way people can search for and ultimately find office space too?
Yeah, the perception there is pretty accurate to reality. Yeah, I mean, so one of these we saw kind of 7-8 years ago was that people were doing more things online. On the residential side here in the States, you have folks like Zillow and at the time Trulia and StreetEasy, which are now all owned by Zillow, showing that when somebody was looking for a house or an apartment, that search was starting online. But that hadn't yet happened on the commercial side. And there's really nothing special about commercial that should lead one to believe that search wasn't coming online. And by the way, it's not just residential real estate, right? It's travel, it's financial services, it's really everything. By and large, for most people, for most transactions, their first instinct these days is to literally go online and Google it. And I happen to come from real estate. I've been doing it for 13, 14 years now. And like I said, right, there's nothing special as much as we in real estate like to think we're special. There's nothing special that insulates us from those desires for folks to be looking online for this.
And it does seem that co-working is here to stay. It's not a passing fad. I think we can all agree on that. But I'm curious, as someone that's right in the heart of this space, how do you think businesses should change the way they think about growing their business as we move forward?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? And one we spend a lot of time thinking about. One of the things that we've seen is that the way that companies are built and grow has changed completely in the last 20 years. You have more satellite offices. You have a lot of companies exhibiting hyper growth in good scenarios and also hyper deceleration in bad scenarios. So again, what we've seen is even though the way that companies are built has changed, their real estate solutions have by and large not. And that's where you've seen co-working and flexible space providers really come in to fill that gap, right? The notion that the average company can plan out their headcount 10 years forward from now and then map their real estate solutions to that is really a thing of the past for most companies most of the time. That doesn't mean that 10-year leases for law firms and big, banks and those types of companies are going anywhere. But it does mean for the average 20-person company, there needs to be a better solution for them in the market going forward.
And I'm also reading more and more about startups competing with huge corporations that have got 100% remote teams because they're able to leverage the best tech talent from all over the world. So how is the increase in remote working changing your industry, do you think?
I'm probably, I don't know where I am relative to the rest of the industry there. I know there's a lot of people who are talking a lot about how remote work is going to completely change everything. I am probably not that bullish on it. I think that, not to use the word too much, but I think flexibility is the key. I see what we do here at SquareFoot. I think, it's good that some people are able to work from home some of the time when they need to cover for a sick nanny or something. I think, however, the notion of the 70 of us all working from home every day is probably not a company I want to be working with. Or definitely not running. There's that in-person collaboration that is really second to none, and remote work doesn't really scratch that itch. I think that as more companies become more flexible, that will have knock-on effects on the amount of real estate a company uses, right? Because if, let's say, on any given day, 10% of any given company, their employees are working remotely. Well, that means they need 90% as much space. And you can take that to, obviously remote is one extreme, which is great. We're 100% remote. We don't need any office space. The question I would then have is, where do you expect these people to work? The answer is surely not their kitchen every day, which then leads to kind of maybe some other co-working spaces or third types of locations. But again, like, top performers don't feel like working out of Starbucks. So even if your company has a remote policy, where are they working from? And I think a lot of these questions are really just outer questions. I think we're too early watching that play out to have to know that my crystal ball is clear there.
No, I completely agree with you. I think technology can create so many opportunities, but it's crucial to find that right balance and not lose the human touch. And like you say, that collaboration face-to-face, and obviously we'll have meetings and so much more, that if you lose touch of that, you could lose so much, couldn't you?
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think that, remote or flexible work, I know those are two slightly different things, makes sense once you've already built up that cadence with somebody, right? So if some member of my leadership team needs to work from home one day, like I said, because of childcare or they're not feeling well, that's 100% fine. Encourage it, makes their life easier. If their life's easier, my life is easier. But we're only able to do that after we've been working together for a bunch of months and a bunch of years. So we have, an operational cadence. We have kind of embedded trust. I think there's clearly a couple examples of companies who've been able to succeed purely remote, but I think those tend to be the exception and not the rule.
And transparency is the name of the game for today's consumer. So I'm curious, in your particular industry, how are you building trust with your audience before they actually approach you? Because I would imagine it's quite challenging.
So that really, it starts with how our whole process starts, which is tomorrow you start looking for office space in New York, let's say, and you Google downtown New York City office space, you're finding us, right? And I know that when you're Googling that, you're either really bored or you're looking for office space. And when you're looking for office space, you want to see some options. You don't necessarily want to talk to a broker right off the bat. So we've architected our whole process around that thought process, right? Which is you as a tenant, as a prospective tenant starting to kick tires in the market. Your first instinct is to Google. Great. We've arranged our funnel for that. And the second thing is you want to start looking at options. You don't want to be thrown out to the wolves with brokers right off the bat. So transparency for us starts at the very top of the funnel and increases continues as we work through an entire transaction with our client where we're collaborating very openly. As I mentioned, right, we use tech throughout that process to centralize it, make it really easy for us to share information with our clients. Equally, if not more important, for our clients to share information internally amongst themselves, and all with an eye towards how do we kind of streamline this process and make it transparent top to bottom.
And there really is no such thing as an overnight success story. So for other startup founders listening who might want to learn from your story, can I ask that you share what happened to you and also the growing pains that you experienced last year when you were further along your journey?
I would love to say we're a success now. I'm not sure. We're making a ton of progress and it's been a lot of fun. But, one of the things I mentioned is back when we started 8 or 9 years ago. So, we're doing a lot of great things now. Business is doing what we want to be doing. But this gets back to that clause, which is 8 or 9 years ago. So unless somebody measures nights and decades, we're not that overnight success story. And there's been a ton of trials and tribulations along the way. And the main thing that I tell myself and I tell others in similar shoes is kind of keep on fighting and that it's completely normal. I think that's one thing that actually has come fairly late to me in my journey, recognition of, is that there's kind of always something on fire, and that's normal. And thinking that, just what you read in the press, which is all these companies are doing so well and everybody's talking about how awesome everything is, that's just what they talk about publicly. But underneath the surface, there's always something going wrong. And if you think that you're going to build a company where that's not the case, you're barking up the wrong tree.
And it's also worth highlighting, of course, that SquareFoot raised $29 million in total since you founded the company. So how are you funding? How is this funding helping you evolve as you continue forward?
Kind of two ways. One, it helps us continue to build out products and services that our clients are clamoring for. And then two, super crucial is building out the team, right? We've been extremely fortunate with the caliber of talent that we've been able to get in the organization the last several years, the last 18 months, really in particular. You see, we've seen a ton of really great talent, not just coming on board, but knocking on our door wanting to come aboard. And, capital doesn't solve everything, but it does enable you to bring on kind of the best and brightest talent. And we've done that time and again, and it's been paying dividends.
And you did hint a few moments ago, you still feel that you're relatively early on in your journey. So what's next for SquareFoot and what excites you about the future?
Yeah, a ton of things. We happen to be playing in one of the largest, if not the largest markets in the world with commercial real estate. We're extremely happy with what we've accomplished in the last couple of years, but we're really just scratching the surface. We've done 1,300 transactions by now. Most of those have been in New York. We're going to start doing a bunch more work in other markets going forward. We'll be launching a couple new markets this year. Secondly, it's kind of continuing to evolve the product and service offering. I mentioned Flex by SquareFoot. That was something that did not exist this time last year, but we heard more and more of our clients describing a solution that needed to get built, so we built that. So this year, another one of our big focuses will be rolling out that Flex by SquareFoot program. So yeah, like I said, just getting started, but in a lot of ways, not even a lot of ways, but across the board, have already made a ton of progress. And I think that's how you know you're kind of doing good work in a really good market to be playing in, which is you can look at the board and you see a nice score up there, but you know there's still plenty of time left in the game to be playing.
Excellent. And as a startup founder, I would imagine it completely engulfs everything that you do. And I'm always curious on how a founder actually finds time to unwind and what they choose to unwind. I did a bit of research on you, and I see you're a big fan of the 3 Bs, bourbon, buffalo wings, and brass bands. Is that still the case? And is it in that order?
Not in that order. And yes, I still like all those. I've picked up, I guess, 2 other Bs, which is biking and boxing, which I've been doing more of these days than the bourbon. Keeps me a little more sane, feeling a little better on Wednesdays and Thursdays at this age in my life. But yeah, all those things are great.
Fantastic. And before I let you go, just for anyone listening that wants to find out more information or reach out to your team, can you just point them in the direction of the best way of finding SquareFoot online?
Yeah, absolutely. Check us out at squarefoot.com or pivotdesk.com. And I'm open on Twitter at JMWass, I think is my handle, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to be friends with all of y'all.
Excellent. Well, I'll add all those links to the blog post that will accompany this podcast. I wish you the best of luck for the future. I love what you're doing here and how you go about it as well, in remaining remarkably humble throughout the whole thing. So more than anything, though, just a big thank you for taking the time to join me today. Thanks again.
Thanks so much for having us. Enjoyed it.
So many big takeaways from that episode there. I mean, commercial real estate is an industry stuck with doing things in the traditional manner, and Jonathan kind of confirmed that. But I love how he's changed the way people can search for and find office space. And like I said at the very beginning of the podcast, co-working is here to stay, and that can only be a good thing. But I also agree with him on his take on 100% remote working. Yes, it's great for flexibility, but never ever meeting your colleague in the flesh, shaking their hand, sharing a coffee, a joke, and maybe even a smoke if that's your thing. But removing those human interactions entirely from our lives, that can't be a great thing, can it? And they have been on a fantastic journey at SquareFoot. And like he said, it is still relatively early. But the fact they've raised $29 million in total since founding shows they're on the right track. But it's time for me to pass the virtual microphone over to you. Please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. Social channels at Neil C. Hughes, whether it be LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is that you use. Just let me know if you want to comment on today's conversation, ask me a question, come on the podcast, work with me, whatever it is. I'm the easiest guy in the world to find, and quite approachable too, if I do say so myself. If not, don't worry, I'll just turn up again tomorrow with another episode with another tech leader talking about a completely different industry, because that's how we do things on here. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.